And we're back. Welcome to Real Talk. It is Saturday, December 20th, 2025. And I know Nick James is not here for this show. He is unfortunately anchoring right now. But we do have a very special guest, Sean McKaveney, joining us, a Point Loma grad who lives in Mission Hills, who did some insane stuff, just completed a 50K on Antarctica. He is fully thought out and in studio with us. We did a story with him on the newscast just a couple of weeks ago. We'll show that in a moment. But Sean, welcome. How's it feel? Like it's an honor to see you again. You look great.
Thanks for having me on. It's not quite as cold here in San Diego, but it's getting there as we get closer to Christmas. But yeah, thanks for having me.
And, to kind of tee up our viewers that are watching this too, 50K in Antarctica, and people who don't know you, you love the adventure. You love, I think you've done the Great Wall of China. You've done Everest. You've done, I feel like every bucket list item that anybody could possibly think of. Like, what motivates you to do that?
Yeah, I've just had the luckiest life. I mean, I wake up sometimes, I'm like, this is fake. It's all going to end terribly somehow. But I've been to all 7 continents, and it just started with, I graduated from law school and I started making a little bit of money, and I decided to book a solo trip to Egypt. And then at the time, it just felt like the most exotic thing I could possibly do. And then as you kind of meet people along travel, you'll start, finding little, adventures here and there. And then somehow you end up in Antarctica running an ultra marathon.
Yeah, you're like, this wasn't enough. I gotta try for more now.
Exactly.
You're gonna try to make it to space next. I feel like that's probably the final front.
I would love to. So if Elon's watching, or someone who has a rocket, I'd love to take a trip up there.
That is so awesome. All right, so I don't want to dive too much into the questions. Let's play the story first, so our viewers get a chance to watch that, and then I got so many more questions to ask you. So here it is, the Antarctic 50K and our neighborhood all-star.
San Diego's Neighborhood All-Stars. Sponsored by your Toyota dealers. We make it easy.
And we're going to start in 3, 2, 1, go!
When you hear that voice and you get a little nervous and you're not sure if you can even complete it, that's when I really like to jump at the opportunity, and I signed up right away.
31 miles. Below freezing temperatures. The adventure of a lifetime.
The wind was howling. It was -2 degrees Fahrenheit. You're looking through the start gate and all you see is white in every direction. The wind is just pounding your face, and they told us it was good conditions too. So we wanted the full experience, and we definitely got it.
Meet Sean McKaveney, a lawyer by day with a lust for life unlike any other.
So I'd run some big races in the past. I'd done a race on the Great Wall of China, and I did a marathon at Mount Everest. And they're amazing experiences, but when I heard about an ultra marathon in Antarctica, I couldn't think of anything bigger.
Or colder, the Antarctic Ice Ultra 50K, 31 miles. The ultimate test.
This is one of the most challenging races in the world, and you definitely have some adrenaline that first mile, and you're looking in every direction. You're kind of talking with some of the other runners, but very quickly it becomes real. Sweat is actually a very big danger in Antarctica because you can easily overheat if you have too much gear on. And when you sweat, it freezes, and that's when hypothermia sets in, and that's when frostbite sets in. So it's a big balancing test to manage your internal heat, not go out too fast, and then still maintain a good pace as best you can.
Every great journey starts with great training, and even though these conditions here in Mission Beach are nothing like Antarctica, Sean credits this trail for getting him past the finish line.
You run an ultramarathon more than anything for yourself and to compete against yourself, but to be crowned champion of your division was a nice little moment.
7 hours and 55 minutes later, way to go! Woo! Mission accomplished.
Unbelievable. 7 hours and 55 minutes later, revisiting that. Thanks for, letting me tell your story first and foremost. Like, it's always weird to share that with somebody and you're watching it, but you have such a great eye for what you were doing there, as well as like participating in the actual event itself. How difficult was the contrast of training for that on the beach and then setting foot on Antarctica and feeling that blast for the first time?
Yeah, in a lot of ways, the training is the fun part for me because you get to visualize every day. You go out for a run and you're thinking today's gonna, practice the long straightaways. Today's gonna do some hills to practice when your legs are tired. So, training and planning and visualizing for all the different contingencies and things that could go wrong is the fun part. But you just never know what's going to happen on race day, and you got to be quick on your feet. And you get out there, and like I said, you just see white in every direction. It's like, gosh, this is real.
It's so isolating. I mean, we're rolling the video right now, seeing everybody out there. Morale has to be through the roof for a lot of these people who sign up to do this. But like, crossing that finish line and knowing you did that in record time too. I mean, that's like a feather in the cap of the whole story.
Yeah, I mean, you don't go down there thinking you're going to win. You're not even really doing it for that reason. But when you cross first, it's a great feeling. But like you said, the morale at the beginning is very excited but very anxious, because it's kind of a sketchy trip when you fly. You take a big cargo plane, no windows, like the seats are just bolted like to the walls, basically, exposed wiring everywhere. And you
like, they're great.
Yeah, and
hopefully this lands.
And they turn off the climate control on the way down, so it gets cold, and you have to put on all your winter gear about an hour before you land. And everyone's like, "This is so crazy." You get there, and then when you start running and people disperse along the course, you're by yourself for most of the race. And the adrenaline early on kind of wears off, and then that's when the mental challenge kicks in.
Does the technology still work at that point? Like, do you have headphones in? Are you listening to that kind of stuff? Like, did you have to test that in freezing temperatures to make sure? Because I feel like tech always ruins me on those types of things. But you kind of need that like music to keep on going.
Yeah, there was that was something you couldn't really plan for. Like, I didn't run with all my gear. A lot of it I'd worn for the first time when I was down there. So luckily, all the tech worked except for GPS tracking on my watch, and like kind of just seeing where you are on Earth would have been cool. But there's limited satellite availability, so that didn't happen. But everything tech-wise held up. But the gear is what we had to fiddle with as you ran.
Was that kind of risky not having knowledge of how that gear was going to work for that?
Yeah.
Or is it just...
Yeah, I mean, like, I feel like kind of standard marathon advice is you don't run in anything you haven't practiced in.
Right.
And I ran in exclusively things that I didn't practice in, including my shoes. Like, the shoes, you have to have like little nano spikes on. And I kept kind of thinking I'll go to a track and run with them, but I didn't want to sacrifice a bad training run. So I brought my normal trail shoes down, and they were in a tent if I needed them. But I wore the nano spikes for the race, and luckily they felt pretty good. But yeah, it was very stressful, that part.
Was it ever getting a little chunky on those spikes? Like, did you have to beat ice off of that at all, or was it pretty...
You didn't have to beat ice. And at the beginning of the race, it was morning time. So the ice was nice and firm. And I thought, I don't even need the spikes. But as the sun came out, it melted some of the ice, and it got slushy. And that's when the spikes really helped a lot.
Gotcha.
So, I'm glad I brought them.
Yeah, no, that's a huge like flex on there. I also want to talk about something that didn't make the story, which was, you mentioned you saw some penguins near the end.
Yeah.
On that whole thing, like how...
This was, of all the experience I've ever had, one of the coolest things ever. And we took a little, so just again, like I said, we took this cargo plane. It's a 6-hour flight from Cape Town to Antarctica. And then from there, we run the race. And then a couple days later, after we've all healed up, we took a little tiny propeller plane and flew that, into the coast instead of deep field Antarctica. And you land on sheet ice, which is like probably 200-foot tall, like iceberg cliffs, if you could picture it. And you land on skis, and then you have to hike like a mile or two to find this emperor penguin colony that's only been visited by humans like once or twice.
That's unbelievable.
It is the coldest I've ever been. Wind was whipping because you're coming off the ocean now, and you're just getting like mist.
Yeah, you're right. And then the wind
it's
from
perfectly
that
sunny and dry, but just freezing. And you see 10,000 emperor penguins who've never seen humans before. They don't have natural predators on land, so they just come right up to you and kind of surround you. And it was like being on a National Geographic documentary or something. It was amazing.
Kidding. Yeah. Were they pretty friendly? Like,
so
do you think you could pet?
Oh yeah. There's very strict environmental rules in Antarctica,
Yeah,
so we had to like back up. But if
don't pet the penguins.
Exactly. And don't feed them. You can't be within like 5 feet of them, basically. But it doesn't stop them. They don't know. So they just come, surround you, and you just kind of wiggle your way through. But it was really once in a lifetime. There's 10 of us on this little excursion. And so there's no human within, hundreds of miles of you. And
how tight-knit is that group now after that whole venture? And
yeah, it's really cool because everyone who came on this trip was just an elite endurance athlete. We had world record setters, Guinness World Record setters. One guy on this race ran 100 miles. People have set records in Ironman triathlons, just amazing group, but from all over the world, Germany, Netherlands, China, America. And very quickly, you're just bonding over the training that you've done and where you're at and just how amazing it is. So, yeah.
So is this group considering doing other, crazy feats together and things like that? Since you guys are all of the same cloth?
We have a group chat going, so people more share what's on their agenda, but I don't think anyone's planning their group runs. But it is very inspiring when you see guys run it. We just had a guy run a marathon just around a lighthouse. So he was I think he ran about 1,000 laps to get to marathon distance, and he set the world record for fastest marathon around a lighthouse.
Wow.
So just really funny group, but big endurance athletes.
Is that something you kind of chase to, like little Guinness World Records that are potentially attainable? Because I feel like, a little bit. I feel like you got to be close to something like that at this rate.
Mine's just a little bit more personal, where I just visualize myself being an old man someday and just thinking I just want to impress myself and go I can't believe I did all this. And the funny thing is you do these extreme races and adventures, and it kind of desensitizes you to a way I just did Antarctica, I did a marathon at Mount Everest, race on Great Wall of China, what's next? And you just start going bigger and bigger and bigger. And it's harder to find things like that. So
yeah,
I don't really chase the records, more just the experience and make it a cool thing.
The other thing you do that I couldn't include in the story, but I think I have video in this at some point, which I'll throw it back on here. Mm-hmm. It shows that you tactically scuba dive.
Yeah,
which I've dove a few times. The feeling of breathing underwater is unlike anything you can really describe, and you have to have a certain calmness internally to even succeed in that department, or else you're just going to waste air. Yeah. But to do that with these little spikes and where you're going under and you're watching the monitor like that, the pressure of that freaks me out for starters. And I guess I get claustrophobic as I've gotten older, and I never really felt that until it was there. But for you, what makes you say yes at that consistently?
When I get this feeling inside of me that makes me nervous, or I can't do that, or that's too dangerous, something like that, it is the green light to go do it. I just don't like living with fear. I don't like living with regrets. And scuba diving actually just started out in a recreational way, but you start seeing these really amazing places, and it's how do I get there?
Yeah.
And then you end up in a deep water cave in Mexico with the, like you said, stalactites hanging down. But that's another really big hobby of mine, and kind of like the training for running. I love the planning aspect of it. You got to make sure you have enough air, enough weight,
right?
What your decompression time is going to be. So that's the really fun part of the diving.
Yeah, I am fascinated by it. I feel like that is really where I want to explore more than outer space in a lot of ways, because it really does feel like such a different world, and there's a quietness to it, and it's also horrifying. I've never done it in the ocean, and the part where you have to just jump right in with your whole thing.
I've had some amazing dive adventures. I've done kind of like you said. I had a trip where I was in Australia, and I took a little propeller plane about an hour off the Great Barrier Reef. So we took a flight to an island off the Great Barrier Reef where we met a boat, and then the boat took us 200 miles more out to these little reefs in the Coral Sea, where there's species of fish that only exist on this reef that's about the size of a city block. And there's crazy drift diving. We're just open water currents. We jumped in one time, and you're 500 meters away from the boat within a second.
Wow.
And
so
then
it just pulls you.
It's just ripping. And then you take it, and the boat will know where the current goes, and they meet you at the end of the drift.
Crazy.
Yeah.
That's kind of the balancing act too, though. You dive into this and you kind of let the ocean take you, and you still have to have that calm internally, because the second you panic is the second I think something really which is what I've learned. So I used to, before I took this job, actually, I flew a stunt plane. I jumped out of a plane. I really had this adrenaline rush. I did a 5-day cattle drive. I actually think you would love something like that in Nevada.
Yeah, send it to me.
Where it's a great thing. You herd 300 head of cattle basically, and you're on horseback for 5 days. You're setting up tent every night. Yeah. And it's unbelievable. People talk about sunrises, but you're in these great basins and you see a moon rising over it, and that gives you all the light you need for the night. Yeah. That you really have to experience to fully process and understand. And I see what you're doing on a regular basis, and kind of chasing the okay, not only what's next, but I'm on this planet to have these experiences, because that's what it's really all about at the end of the day.
Yeah, and like you said, these type of things like the cattle drive, I'm sure you have the same feeling. you get away from everybody.
Yeah.
And like when I go cave diving, it's my favorite thing. And, you know, it is a more dangerous form of diving. But I find that like when you go into the cave, there's no going back, especially at a kind of a certain turn.
Yeah, there's only one way in, right?
And that is actually very calming to me. Like where you go, you know what, like a lot of this stuff's out of my control. If something goes wrong, I've planned the best I can. And you just let go of your worries. No one can call you. There's no one around you. You're very self-sufficient when you're down there. And it's a very calming aspect. Like any type of diving is like that. But Antarctica, same thing. No cell service. People can't call you. Cattle drive. You're out there by yourself.
Are your parents worried though? Because my parents hate when I would stop telling them after a while that I was doing something like this.
Yeah, they're very worried, and it's nice to have because you do a lot of these things, nothing goes wrong, and you feel invincible.
Right.
And it's nice to have people that care about you and are like, "Be careful. Are you sure? You check this?
Yeah. Like, what are you doing? What are you thinking about doing?"
But yeah, luckily nothing's gone wrong so far.
Yeah, knock on wood. We're knocking on wood on that one.
Yeah.
Another thing I didn't include in the story that I think is really a funny aspect of the whole thing is you're out. And it's what, negative whatever degrees it is. You just ran 30 plus miles and you go back to the hotel and there's not hot water in the shower, which is what that would be like my end goal. It's like, okay, I've earned this shower. I've done this. I've reached the mountaintop. Like, let me wash it all off of me. And it wasn't as like fruitful, I guess, for you.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. You're running for 8 hours. You're in a lot of pain. But you are focused on the finish line, and you, especially towards the end of the race, I was thinking like, this is crazy. I'm getting to the end. You know, you do the little exit interviews with their press team, and then everyone goes on to the next runners that are finishing, and you're like, all right, let's go back. And you're sore, you're cold, you're sweaty. You walk in, and they tell you the pipes are frozen, and they're not going to be unthawed till the next day. And you have one bed for the whole 6 days that you're down there, and you're just disgusting. And it's like, all right, what can you do? You're in Antarctica. So luckily some people had wet wipes, so we wiped down with, but you know, that was a bit of a disappointment.
Yeah, no, I can only imagine. It's like, this is what I'm really hoping for, you know, some kind of relief on this one. I'm a crazy shower, so I feel like I need it twice a day. And like, you know, really it's like a therapeutic thing for me, but
it is fun though. Like those little moments is what make it feel rugged.
Yeah.
And where we stayed was this research station that's like co-run by the Russians and by some other countries. And that's what they live with every day. And you feel like you're not a tourist when those type of things happen. You're not doing any like long-term staying down there, but it makes it feel a lot less luxurious than, you know, what some of the other trips to Antarctica.
And it's not about the luxury either. I mean, if you want a luxurious trip, you're going to go book a retreat somewhere at a hotel and everything else. Like, this is more of a mental battle in a sense where it's like, this is the challenge. I've prepared enough to do this, and I'm going to make it happen.
Yeah. This was actually my second time to Antarctica, and I did the main tourist route the first time with my dad, and it was amazing. Like, a totally different experience. You go down the peninsula underneath South America, and it was amazing, spectacular. This felt though like a different world and you were like at an outpost and no help if something goes wrong. And it was a completely different experience, but that's what I was looking for this time.
So as far as like the eating went throughout those 8 hours and everything, did you pack your own stuff? Were there little stations that you could, you know, grab some peanut butter or, you know, the electrolytes that you would need? Like, how did that kind of break down?
We took over one of the big permanent tents that are part of the base, and you could have like different clothes and more layering. And they also had some like pasta and Gatorade and stuff sit in there. But even then, like the tent isn't fully insulated. So by the end of the race, the Gatorade had all frozen.
The pasta was probably a little stiff.
Exactly.
You know?
But I had like all of my fuel, like the gels and electrolyte powder, and I had like a running vest on with me. But I stopped a couple times. Like we ran a lap course, so like I would run in and grab some pasta real quick and then head back out. But most of the gels, I also had salt tablets. That was the other big thing. I probably ate like 40 salt
to retain the water.
Every 15 minutes, I was popping one of them. Exactly. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I guess that's the other aspect. I mean, we kind of talked about that a little bit during the interview, and I don't think that fully made it, but, you know, dehydration is also a huge thing, which is crazy when you're surrounded by ice and water.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, like I said in the clip, you have to really regulate your temperature. And coming from San Diego, that's the hard part, is I didn't get to test my gear in cold weather. So my plan was I started light, like I didn't have many layers on, and I was going to add if I needed it. And I was still too hot at the beginning because in the morning the sun was low and there wasn't any wind. But I had the gear or the fuel on me, and then as it got colder, I added more layers and thicker gloves and stuff. But yeah, so you kind of figure it out.
I'm always curious about this too. Like once you finished and the story's been publicized, have brands reached out to you saying like, oh, we can gear you up for the next thing? Like anything of that nature?
No, I mean, I'm open if anyone's out there, but
I'm sure, I'm setting you up for this.
Yeah,
thing. You're
exactly.
like, please, Nike and Lululemon and whatever else it is.
It's funny because like, I don't really consider myself a runner. I just love challenges. And I've done a couple now where I feel equipped to handle, longer races, but I'm not in that circle necessarily. But I would love to do more. There's a couple big races out there that are even more extreme that I'd like to tackle. Like there's a race at the North Pole that would be neat to go from the south.
It's great for Christmas time next year.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So there's a couple that are pretty expensive. There's this same company that did our race has a 7 marathons, 7 days, 7 continents.
Yeah, we've done features on people who finished that here in San Diego. So but that's a gnarly stretch. I mean, you're gone for a month, I think.
I mean, the race itself just takes a week. But to get down to Cape Town is from San Diego at least 3 days, and then there's all the recovery time. It finishes in Miami. But same thing. You need sponsors for that one. That's quite expensive. And you charter a plane around the whole
They've
world.
also mentioned, I think I interviewed somebody about this a couple of years back, so this is full brain fog at the moment, but the biggest issue in that is the recovery, because you finish one of those legs and then you're on a plane and you're just sitting like this and your body hurts so much that you can't lay, you can't like roll it out or whatever. And you're fighting that as well within that.
Right. And I'm not sure what it was back then. Now they have a charter plane with a lot of lay flat seats, but you're still on it. And like for a week and you can't roll. So luckily a lot of people who do that type of race, they have those like recovery boots and air compression.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I've seen those. It helps with recovery, but there's no easy way to run 7 marathons in 7 days. So it's like, you could have the most luxurious Air Force One or something, and
the body's still just going to be, destroying itself. My other question, which I don't think would have had time in the piece, is like, how do you go from these moments, right? That is really what life's all about, back to the office?
Yeah.
Like, what's that whiplash kind of like? What's it like being, back and trying to connect with some coworkers that, maybe don't get out and do anything.
Right.
Like that. I think a big night's like going out to Gaslamp or something. It's just a different.
Luckily, there's no place like San Diego, so it's very nice to come home to. At work, it's a completely different setting, obviously. But I'm a lawyer. I work at like one of the top employment firms in the country, so we have really high stakes business litigation and employment litigation. So it's hyper competitive. And we're battling every day just on an intellectual level. So you have a lot of the same mentality, but you're just, coming up with legal arguments and then presenting them to a judge or a jury. So you kind of scratch the same itch when you're at work, but just you're sitting instead of running.
I guess so. It's all, I feel like I would have such a hard, like even on those trips that I did, or when I was doing those extreme stories, like I went dog sledding once too,
I want to do that. Yeah.
Which is an awesome thing. We had like 12 dogs in the snow in Tahoe. It was an unbelievable day. And then the rest of that week I was just like at work waiting for, get it online. I mean, there's a lot of nuance, and my job's way different than being a lawyer and everything else, but
you still got to be like on though when you come back.
For sure, you have to be sharp.
Yeah.
You can't be tired from everything.
And when you're out on the race, you kind of check out, and it's almost meditative when you're running or you're with the dogs, and that is like a bit of a difference when you get back at work. It's like you're taking care of clients too, so it's like you can't.
And they don't know anything,
right,
and they're not expecting. They're not like, oh, you just did this.
Yeah,
like
exactly. Yeah,
there's money and time and all that other stuff on the line.
Yeah.
I guess outside of that 7 marathons, 7 days, is there anything else that you're eyeing that you're like, this is a spot I want to visit and this is something I want to try?
There's some really cool adventures out there. I really like caving, and there's some pretty epic caving adventures that are kind of on my list. So I'm exploring those. You need some technical rock climbing skills, so I'm going to touch up on that before I head out. But like I said, there's the North Pole Marathon. And then some more mainstream marathons. Like I'd love to run the Athens Marathon just because that's where it all began.
Yeah.
But those are the big ones that are kind of in the back of my mind.
So as an athlete like this, do you look at other, like who, I guess, do you look up to in this regard? Like a Bear Grylls or, because you kind of fit different angles. You have the running side of it all and what it takes in that and your body and like.
That's a good question. I think, no one stands out as like a role model on the fitness side. But what is interesting is when you start doing little races like this, you realize
Yeah, I know, a little 30K or
like we're
30 miles and whatever it is.
There's so many better runners you hear these accomplishments, or even just Ironman has become so ubiquitous, like in the culture. So many, I did an Ironman. But when you do like a race like that, it's like, wow, those people are just next level. Yeah. So I would love to do an Ironman. I've trained for one and just never made it, like through injury reasons. But those people are next level. You see the David Goggins type. They're just, amazing athletes, superhuman.
I also was going to ask you this, like when it comes to you, like, I guess the question is, would you ever write these down, make these books,
like
something like that of just.
Yeah. Like, obviously at work, I'm writing all day, every day. And so I would love to do that. The hard part is just finding the time.
Yeah.
And I also feel like the story's not finished yet, so like it's hopefully heading somewhere bigger and better. A big part of all this for me is like a faith side. So I'd love to share, like I'm Catholic and I'd love to share that with people. During this race, actually, I prayed the rosary for the entire 8 hours. So that was a big part of it. So there's like kind of little things in the works like that I'd love to share, but for now, no book in the works, but maybe someday.
Well, the prayer was answered when you crossed that finish line.
100%. Just to get to do stuff like this, like it's not lost on me how lucky I am, and not a lot of people get to do one trip like this, and I've had many. And so I just don't want to waste it. I would like to, like something like this, it's fun to share, and maybe it inspires somebody else, but yeah, I'm very lucky.
I feel like I can't ask you anything else. You wrapped that up so perfectly. But is there anything that really stands out that maybe we didn't touch on the story or any of that other?
I think all I would say is, like, if you're at all interested and you feel a nervous feeling on whatever your adventure is, you got to pull the trigger and go for it, because you can find a way if you're excited about something. And that's what got me going. And like I said, I'm still climbing, hopefully.
Sean McKaveney, thank you so much for the time. Thanks for coming in. For everything else, we're excited for whatever adventures you have on the horizon. Continue telling your story, and it's cool that you're a local from here too. Like it's really hard to find like somebody born and raised who's really spreading their wings, but still keeping San Diego. I love
San Diego. Like I said, I've been all over the world, and there's no place better than here.
That says a lot. Yeah, it says a lot. World traveler right there. We will have his story posted on our Fox5 app. So if you missed that and want to see it again, that is there. We'll also post this online shortly after. I know it's the holiday season, so our team's a little backed up and everything else. Sean, thanks again for the time, and we will see all of you, if you stuck through this, next time. Thanks again. We're going to roll the tape, and we are real talking. Good night.